Hello again, this is UML Operator. In a previous video on legends, we created a status legend that was filtering the element status. So we were filtering the element status that you find when you open the dialog box, the status right here. And let's change this to implemented, and you'll see the color change to what is being driven by the legend. In this session, we're going to create a legend, but instead of utilizing the filter for element, we are going to utilize tag values, and we're going to build a tag value that we can use to drive the coloring for status. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a tag value. So we go to the settings tab, we go to UML types, and in the dialog, we're going to select tag value types. And I do not have a name called status. Now, status is not a good name because status is a bit ambiguous. And status is used as an element, a data field, in different modeling approaches in Sparx. But we're going to do it anyways, all right? So we could call this class status, delivery status, whatever we want. And we're going to give it a description. We'll go ahead and just type that in here, and let's start coding or create the details for this tag value. And as usual, if you want to read ahead, select the help key. It'll take you to the Sparx help pages from the welcome page, model repository, reference data, UML types, and we're on tag value types. And so you can read ahead. You can go into different areas of modeling and the things that you can do with tag values. I'm going to be covering all of this in later videos, all right? So there's a lot to talk about here. There's so much that you can do that I can't cover in one video, so there'll be lots of different videos. I'm going to keep this very simple. You see me reference enumeration quite a bit, so you start with a type enum for enumeration, but I'm just going to start with using simple values. All right, so we start by calling out the type, and it's going to be values equal. And if you remember from the last video, we're using approved, comma separated, no spaces necessary, implemented, hopefully I'm spelling this right, mandatory, what was the other one, proposed, and then validated. And then you want to end with a semicolon. And then we're going to set a default, and this will make more sense to you in a moment, equals, and then simply make a selection. And when you see this in a moment, ended with a semicolon, it'll make sense to you. And then you might put in some notes like after the semicolon, this tag is used to derive, I don't know, status in architecture, elements, whatever, right? So something like that, we're going to go ahead and hit save. So now we've created a tag value called status. We describe what it is. Always remember to keep it short and sweet, but as concise as possible on what it is, because you're going to get lots of tag values. And you want to be able to describe to yourself for management reasons, as well as your modelers and your audience that are utilizing these tag values. Now that we've got that, well, let's go ahead and close this dialog. Let's minimize these so we can get the common elements, and let's bring in a legend. So, and just, we're going to use the same naming convention that we used in the last video, just status legend, right? We want to apply coloring, auto coloring based off the values that we're going to be putting in here. The filter we're going to use is tag values. We're going to select, and the tag value that we're going to use, and go ahead with the default global tag values, is the one that we just created. And you can see there are a lot of MDG driven tag values. I'm just going to type status so we can quickly get down the list. And here's the one we just created. I'm going to hit OK. And we're not going to use numeric evaluation because we use alpha references. All right, it could be alphanumeric, but we're not going to use numeric. I'll cover this in a later video, more advanced subject. So let's type in the first one, approved. Right, I'm just doing the values. I explained in the last video the difference between value and display value. And well, let's choose our first color, and it's going to be this light blue. Let's try this one out. We're going to go with a border of darker blue, 2 pixels. All right, and if you watched the last video, which I recommend, and I'll put a link in this video, you'll understand what we're doing right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Let's hit OK and look at it. So you can see, and let me size this to fit, pan and zoom, size it to fit, make it larger. So you can see there's a blue inside the color legend, and there's a darker blue, 2 pixel wide border around that. Let me go ahead and double click this. Got the legend back up. Let's go ahead and add the other values. I'll be right back. All right, let me do the last one. We're selecting new. We have a blank space for value. It was validated. We went with a green. You want to, in your inside, you want to use the lightest color you can because you'll have words in there that you want people to read. And if it's too dark, that's going to create some problems for you. It's not that it's not doable. You just have to change the font color to something that's readable. And then for this one, we're going to go with a dark green, I think, 2 pixel wide. So when we're applying the value, you can see it'll autofill this color, autofill this line, and then auto apply this line width. All right, let's go ahead and hit save, and let's hit OK. All right, so we've got our legend going so far, but we're not done yet. Let's do connectors. Now I'm going to double click in here. We're going to open the dialog box. We're going to go to connector. And if you remember in the last video, you don't have a status on an association, a connector between 2 elements. But with tag values, you are able to drive coloring of your associations, your lines, or your connectors between elements. So what we're going to do is we're going to, because we're utilizing the tag value statements, we're going to use approved for our connectors, right? So the filter is on connector, but it's on tag value, custom, and again, just start typing in status so that you can quickly get down into that large drop-down box. We're going to hit OK, right? So we're applying the filter to the tag value status, and then apply to all. You can choose all types of elements and associations and connectors. I am going to leave it on all. A lot of times I'll set it to just association, only filter on that one, but I'm going to leave it on all right? And then we'll see how that turns out. And let's see here, it was blue. We want to go the darkest possible blue we can, but not too dark, right? So you could do light, and then we'll look at how that looks, but you can see this border color. I want to get close to that, and I'm just going to choose this one, and we'll look at it. 2 pixels is for the lines. It applies the line and the width of the line, all right? So let's just go ahead and hit OK, and we're going to hit OK, and you can see it'll start building that list of legend for connectors down below the element. All right, let's do the last one. We're going to hit new. Validated. We're using as close to this green border as we can. We want to be 2 pixels wide. You could go up to 5, I think it is. Yeah, 5, but 2 pixels is enough. And then let's hit save, and let's hit OK. And then that size of the screen here for you. All right, so now you have your legend built for status. Now let's bring in an element. 2 elements, actually. We're going to bring in a class element 1. We're going to create an association to another class element, and there we go. All right, and let's apply tag values to the elements and the connector. There's a couple of places you can manage tag values. I'm going to double click and open up the property box, and then we're going to go to tags, this tab right here, and we're going to select up in this toolbar up here, add a new tag, right? And it's not case sensitive. You know, it starts with a capital S. but I'm going to go lowercase and just to make a point. I could put a value in here now, but I'm not, because it gives, remember the default statement, make a selection. So you're telling the user to populate or make a selection. We hit the control box and we're going to choose approved. All right. And you can see that it auto-colored it to the color that we have in the legend, right? Let's do the line this time. Double click it. We're going to open up the property box for associations. And then right here, we're going to go to tags. There's no tag values yet. We're going to hit the create. We're going to type in status. Will I spell it right? Hit enter. You can see our make a selection. Default text is in there. Hit the control. And let's say propose. Let's see what that looks like. And we're going to hit OK. Auto-colored it for us, right? Let's do this one right here. Let me show you the second place, right? So if you go to properties here, and then you'll see in properties, you've got the element properties, and you have the tag properties. This is what I usually do, use properties over on the lower right, not the dialog box. It's just faster. And then status, see my fingers work, then hit the control box. And let's use implemented. You see how fast it's coloring based off this legend. Now, if this legend wasn't here, I'm going to go ahead and delete it from the diagram. Everything goes back to its default colors and sizes and widths and so on. But I'm going to hit Control Z to undo, bring it back. So you can have multiple legends on the same model that drive different conversations. In this particular case, you're showing architectural view, a block diagram, and the status to your stakeholders on where you are in particular implementations, whether they're approved or they're still in proposed, regulatory constraints, they're mandatory, and the same with associations. So hopefully this is making sense to you. Now let's look at it in a block diagram. Now I've used this e-com example in a few videos, so you may be familiar if you watched previous sessions. So in this particular case, what we're going to do is we're going to just copy Control C from where this is. And if I hit Alt G on it, you can see that this legend is in this namespace, this package. But what we're going to do is in this e-commerce package right here, we're just going to shift and insert. That's just like copy paste, Control C, Control V, right? If I hit Control Shift and V, let me delete this, hit this. I've already got it, Control C, copied in cache. I'm going to hit Control Shift and V, and you can see paste it as new. And we're going to do that right now. Include connectors, and here it comes. So now this legend is inside or part of this namespace. Now, if you're using the same legend through your entire project, you might just have a package that you just call model legends, and then you have a bunch of different legends you can just simply drag and drop into your diagrams. But you'll see me do that in other videos. But let's get to the point here. So I'm going to hit delete just to remove it from the diagram. It is still here inside this namespace where we just put it. So these are the default colors and sizes and shapes, right? So I am going to hit undo, Control Z, there we go. And as soon as I bring this into my diagram, because it's applying auto coloring based off the criterion that we have put here, you can see that it's coloring these elements for us. So you're able to see what is implemented, what is approved, what's mandatory, what's proposed, and what's validated, not only for elements, but for connectors, something you couldn't do in the previous video because there's not the notion of status on a connector. So now you're able to do that. Now in this session, hopefully you've learned how to create tag values very simply. This is a very simple tag value. In later sessions, we get more advanced. We'll get into some advanced formatting and driving tag values through scripting and other automation. But this got you started on how to create tag values, which extends stereotypes. And then later on, we'll get into constraints, the three key parts in object-oriented development, object-oriented design, and UML. So I look forward to getting with you in those sessions, and I hope this session was helpful for getting you started. So creating a tag value, now you know how to create a legend. Now you know how to drive the legend, whether you're driving it from the element data, metadata that Sparx provides you, or the tag values that you customize yourself or build yourself, all right? And then your ability to actually drive the coloring, auto coloring, for your readers to understand when they're looking at a legend and looking at a picture, which is supposed to speak 1,000 words, what the story is you're trying to tell. Now, just as I did in the last video, we worked with the values only. I talked about the display value and the difference. So you can type anything you want, any language. You might have statuses for different countries that you're working on that are using the English version of Sparx for taking the term approved and then driving it into a specific language. So you're able to actually put anything that you want here, and then as soon as you hit save, that's what's going to show up for your readers. All right. So what I did was simply just, after I'm sure that I have the values set correct and I've tested them, I go through and I just put in the display value that's in there for both the elements as well as the connector. So it applies there. So again, I hope this video helped you get started in tag values, how to build legends, how to use legends to drive your model views and your story. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Happy modeling.